Hi, my name's Michael J. Long, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. All right. I found this article on NBC News on their website, and so I don't entirely trust NBC News because it's a more liberal news station, and they have a more liberal bias. And I don't really trust the conservative media outlet either. I usually tend to gravitate more towards libertarian news outlets and stuff like that, like Reason Foundation and all that. But I found this article on their site or on their app. I was kind of scrolling along, and this article was written by David K. Lee. So apparently he's the if you go down to where's the thing? He's the NBC. He's a journalist, and for NBC News, I believe. It was written on August 7th, 2019 at 5:11 p.m. Standard Time or Edition Time. Workers, and then this shows this picture, it's a mess, I know. Workers are escorted to a bus for transportation to a processing center following a raid by U.S. immigration officials at Koch Food Plants in Morton, Mississippi on August 7, 2019. So shortly after this raid, and I think from the Associated Press made this picture, something like that, I don't know. But the article goes on to say that immigration enforcement authorities raided food processing plants across Mississippi on Wednesday, picking up 680 workers in what was being billed as the biggest single day in a one-state sweep in U.S. history, officials said. The raid hit several plants in 6 cities, and most of the workers arrested are Latino. It goes on to say with a quote, "While we are a nation of immigrants, more than that, first and foremost, we are a nation of laws," says U.S. Attorney Mike Hurst of the Southern District of Mississippi. They have to come here legally or they can't come here at all. Hurst also criticized businesses for using undocumented immigrants, to which he replies, according to this article anyways, to those who use illegal aliens for competitive advantage or to make a quick buck, we have something to say to you. If we find that you have violated federal and criminal law, we're coming after you, he said. The long-planned raids unfolded as President Trump traveled to El Paso, Texas, where 22 people were killed Saturday, allegedly by a man linked to an online screed about the invasion of Hispanic immigrants. Trump has long railed against illegal immigration and began his presidential campaign by declaring that Mexican immigrants are bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, and they're rapists, he says. So the acting director of Immigration Customs Enforcement, Matthew Aldice, said there was no connection between the timing of these raids and the El Paso Trump trip. This is a long-term operation that's going on, Aldice said. Our enforcement operations are being done on a radically neutral basis. Investigations are based on evidence. Police also told the Associated Press that the raids could be the largest such operation thus far in any single state. In light of Wednesday's raids, the American Civil Liberties Union and the Southern Poverty Lawsuit Center both issued adversaries urging anyone approached by ICE to remain silent, not to open any doors without seeing a warrant, and demand to speak to a lawyer. It was a sad situation inside, said Domingo Carrilla, a legal resident and worker at Koch Foods Incorporated in Morton, Mississippi, about 40 miles east of Jackson, where one of the raids took place. The detained workers were expected to be processed at a home at the Mississippi National Guard in Flowood near Jackson. So here it is. David K. Lee. David K. Lee is a breaking news reporter for NBC News. And, of course, the Associated Press also contributed to this article. So this is a source, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not, but you know, and I'm not saying that these quotes are correct or incorrect, or if it's taken out of context or not, because I do not know. Other than, but what I will say is that according to the quote on this article by the attorney, where it says, well, let me just read it off. It says, while we are a nation of immigrants, more than that, first and foremost, we are a nation of laws, said U.S. Attorney Mike Hurst of the Southern District of Mississippi. They have to come here legally or they can't come here at all. And then he goes on to say that to those who use illegal aliens for competitive advantage or to make a quick buck, we have something to say to you. If we find that you have violated federal law, we're coming after you, he said. So in other words, if you're a U.S. citizen or even a documented immigrant, you create a small business, you create in the free market in this country, and you decide you're going to hire illegal immigrants, well, guess what? According to federal immigration laws, you can't do that. Well, you know what? My opinion on the matter is this. Who is the federal government to tell you who you can hire and who you can't hire? It's your business. You're the business owner. You can hire whoever you want. Who is the federal government to tell you who you can and can't hire? So, as a private property rights advocate and also a right of business rights and all that, I would say that this would be even considered an appalling quote from this particular individual if this is in fact the case of what he's saying. And this could be taken out of context for all I know, because the media has their own source of bias, but I'm not, especially with NBC being a more liberal news source, they're going to be attending more towards the Democratic Party. But if you want my opinion, I think most of these people, if they are eligible to vote, should vote for the Libertarian Party rather than the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party doesn't care about them as much as the Republican Party doesn't care about them. But aside note, the other thing is, the U.S. Constitution, except for the right to vote, all the other rights apply to everyone on U.S. soil. So it's really actually illegal to detain or arrest anyone for any reason without due process of law, or even and anybody can be accused of being an illegal immigrant, and whether they are or not is a total different matter. So, yeah, I mean, I just think that there's better ways to handle this situation than what's being applied. I think, especially under the Trump administration, but also under the Obama and Bush administration, immigration has always been dealt with in a disastrous manner, and I feel like it could be dealt with in a better manner than this. I mean, first of all, what if we just not build a wall, which first of all is going to cost $2 or $3 billion of taxpayers' money, which we know Mexico's not even going to pay for, right? So $1.2 billion, let's say. That's money we don't have. That's money that's going down the drain. That's money that could be saved, you know. And also, there's a lot of private businesses, private and homeowners, all that established along the border. So you're going to take people's private properties and businesses and homes and shut it all down just to build a wall over these certain sectors. Which I think, and then to have checkpoints and being asked, are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a documented or immigrant? A yes or so, no, blah blah blah. But I honestly think that the way we're handling it is atrocious. First of all, I should point out that for all the illegal immigrants that are not committing violent offenses, they should be given a pathway to legal residency that they would have to reapply once every 10 years or for established visa or whatever, right? Green card, whatever. And then, you take the ones that are committing criminal offenses, violent offenses, such as murder, rape, unarmed robbery, armed robbery, arson, whatever it is. Any violent offenses you can just think of, or even if it's drunk driving or whatever, and you can have them prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and when deemed, and then just have them deported if they're found guilty. if by a jury of their peers, as established under the Constitution, of having to get a warrant for probable cause, and that really we should be also handling this on a case-by-case process, on a case-by-case basis, so that all those that aren't committing criminal offenses can be given a pathway to legal residency, pay a $500 to $300 fee, so in other words, lower the fees, that it could, and really fix our legal system, because there are some countries where one is simply can't come in because, or other cases where certain countries where people are banned from coming in altogether. And you have to figure many of these people, not all, but many of these people want a better life for their kids, for themselves, to establish a family, etc. And they have that right to immigrate where they please, as long as they're not bothering anyone else. And as a libertarian, I kind of see it. I kind of don't feel that we should be going after private businesses and telling them what they can and who they can and can't hire. And this is atrocious. Whether you agree with the article or not, you have to admit that while Fox News might put a different spin on it and a more conservative spin, that you have to understand the overall issue of this matter and why it's kind of redundant and appalling, to say the least, in terms of why someone would consider a raid like that, as was the case with President Donald Trump. It's not like any of these people committed any violent offenses. The only fear is that they might be taking up jobs from other people. And according to the Libertarian Party, that's not even the case in most situations. Because many of these people create small businesses and hire. They might hire illegal immigrants, but they might also hire documented immigrants and U.S. citizens, including many white people. So I don't see how this is predominantly, hey, we start a business and then we're going to hire our own. I don't see how that is the case. I could be wrong, but it's the way we're handling it. We're throwing these people out without due process, and I believe in due process. I believe, at the very least, if you're going to do this, that they should have their day in court, and they should have their own lawyer. They should have a defense system. This is appalling. It really is.